If you look at your life, you're not a scientific brain. You're a human being. And the key to your life is relationships. The key to your life is not an experiment in a lab. It's relationships. All right, Jesus says, God created you for a purpose. And that purpose is to love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
Now just look at your life. Jesus makes a ton of sense.
Why do I need Jesus to love people?
Good. You don't. You can love people as an atheist, no question about it.
Well, I'm not saying I'm an atheist.
All right, whatever.
I'm
You bet,
just
agnostic,
saying,
whatever you are. You bet. I don't know what you are. Well, what are you?
Oh, I'm nothing.
No, you're something.
No, I'm nothing.
You're someone.
No, I'm really nothing.
No, I don't agree with you.
Well, that's what I am.
No. You're a human being with incredible value and dignity.
No, I know that, but I'm saying, what am I? If I were to label myself, I just wouldn't.
Okay, good.
I just wouldn't bother.
Okay, good. But here's where I'm suspicious. You have to answer the question, what is the basis of my worth? And if you refuse to answer that, you're going to have to answer the question, what's the basis of her worth? Because you're going to walk over her.
What do you mean by the basis of worth?
Why is she valuable? Why is she worth anything?
What do you mean by valuable?
What if the answer to that question?
Significant.
How would you value someone?
And
You value someone by saying, you know something? There is a difference between this and this. If I step on this, that is not morally wrong. If I step on you, that is morally wrong. Why?
No.
Because you are not.
I'm totally kidding, sir.
It's okay. You're not inanimate matter. You're a human being created by God for a purpose. I'm a human being created by God for a purpose, which means our lives are not meaningless.
Yeah.
See, if there is no God, there is no difference between this and this.
Yeah.
Why? Because if there is no God, what's reality? All of reality is matter and energy. So this is one form of matter and energy, and this is another form of matter and energy. No qualitative difference, simply different forms of matter and energy. See, that is why Camus, Albert Camus, the French atheistic existentialist philosopher, and Friedrich Nietzsche, the German atheistic philosopher, were so spot on, because they had the courage to face the logical consequences of their atheism. See, if you say there is no God, then what is real? Matter and energy. This is one form of matter and energy. This is another form of matter and energy. This is another form of matter and energy.
And really, it's
No qualitative difference. So you see, which means you don't have any value.
okay.
But according to Jesus Christ, pardon?
That's arguable, yes.
But according to Jesus Christ, because there is a God who created you in his image, because there is a God who loves you deeply, so much so that he sent his son Christ to die on a cross for you, therefore, if I abuse you, degrade you in any way, that is absolutely evil.
But Jesus isn't what gives her life value. Like, let's say.
Yeah, if Jesus is God, Jesus is the one who gives her life value. If he's not God, then forget about him.
What I'm saying
But
is
God is the one who gives
but
you value.
You just said earlier
How
that
does
it's
that even give you
relationships
value?
that give your life value.
No, it's not relationships that give my life value. No. Relationships are a lot of what life is all about. It's God who gives my life value, and God created me to live in relationships, to love him and to love others.
We're talking about facts and history. And 2,000 years ago, it was strictly testimony. I mean, if ISIS were to take over the Middle East and say, you know, this is what everyone thought, and then in 2,000 years, we read, hey, this is what everyone thought, and it's not actually what everyone thought, and we believe it, we're not using logic. I mean, you're basically saying that Jesus is God because a book says he's God. The argument for miracles is defeasible because testimony, it's more likely that the testimony is false than an actual miracle occurred. So my problem is, Jesus, if he existed, was the greatest man who ever lived, but to call him God, you can't back that up by saying, look at this 2,000-year-old book, and look at what these people said.
Okay, but if this man who is so great, who lives such a life of compassion and forgiveness, claims to be God in human form, what do you do with that?
I take it with a grain of salt.
Okay, but what do you, then after you've taken it with a grain of salt, what does that mean practically?
Look,
you
if
do?
I met Jesus and I saw him rise from the dead, then we would be talking about the possibility that he was God. But if I followed someone who was morally perfect and they told me I'm God and I'm going to rise from the dead, I'd say, that's fine. I'll believe you when I see it. Otherwise, you're the greatest man I've ever met, and you've got something wrong also. There's something not up here right. Until I see it, how can I believe it? He might have fulfilled
good.
every moral promise.
So do you really believe that? Unless I can see it, I cannot believe it. Is that what you really believe?
Well, you got me there. No.
Good. Okay, so shouldn't you be open to the possibility that human beings can at times speak the truth? So can't you be open to the possibility that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Paul and Peter, when they talked about having seen Jesus Christ risen from the dead, that possibly they were speaking the truth?
Yes, but to say it's possible is not to say it's true.
Okay, good. So then if it's possible that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, James, Paul were speaking the truth when they insisted that Christ rose from the dead, don't you think it would be wise to go back and study their documents very carefully to ascertain whether they were lying or whether they were speaking the truth? Wouldn't that be worthy study for you?
Yeah, but the problem lies in the credibility of those documents. There's
Good.
A lot of questions.
Hey, good. So start. What's your first question about the credibility of the document?
Who wrote it? What was their motive? Who did they know? What were they trying to achieve?
Good question. Great question.
Probably pertinent.
The guys who wrote it had no upside perk. The guys who wrote it were persecuted. They were martyred for their belief in Jesus. They died for it. Matthew, John were martyred. Peter was crucified upside down. Paul was beheaded. Not good perks. And yet they insisted that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead, that he was Lord. So I think the motive is pretty clear. They were convinced that he was the truth. And they died not for political power. They died not for financial gain. They died for the one they were convinced was reliable and true.
And that's true, but so did Nazis for Hitler. No, they died.
Yeah.
They at the end suffered for what they believed in, and they stuck to it for this. The same principle applies logically. It's we're going to suffer for something we're fanatical about, but that fanaticism might not be the right fanaticism. It might not be true.
Okay.
They just were willing to die for what they stood for.
Okay, now here's the difference.
Let me intercede.
The difference is the Nazis died for a philosophy. Matthew, John, Peter, Thomas died for what they claimed to have seen.
But what makes
The
Jesus
dead Christ risen from the dead, which means they either died for what they knew to be a lie. And if you study psychology, you will find out people do not die for what they know to be a lie. People will die for a lie, convinced it's the truth. But if these guys make up and fabricate this resurrection of Christ, they know very well Christ didn't rise from the dead. They fabricated this. They would not, sir, be willing to die for their lie. People don't do that. Just look at Watergate. Dean, Ehrlichman, and Haldeman, three brilliant American lawyers, lied about the Watergate scandal. Finally, when the pressure was on, and the evidence was the Watergate scandal really did occur, they all cracked. They were not willing to go through a few years of prison to cover up what they knew to be a lie. How much more unlikely for a group of first century guys to create and fabricate this lie that Jesus had risen from the dead and they'd seen him, and then be willing to die for it?
Well, to presuppose they manufactured it's not what I'm saying. They might have really thought they saw it. I mean, it's just a matter of, like, someone who takes acid thinks they saw a lot of things they didn't see. I'm not saying they would have manufactured it to where motive's the question.
Right.
It's a question of, did they see what actually
You
happened,
bet.
or were they deluded?
I understand. Okay, and this is why you got to go to the source document. The reason you got to go to the source document is because of what you just said. Maybe they just hallucinated. Maybe they fabricated. So what you got to do is you got to go to the source document. Now notice the unembellished language of the resurrection account. Matthew chapter 28. It's 10 verses. After the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, he has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay, then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, now I have told you. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. Greetings, he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see him. That's it.
How does that not sound embellished?
It's not embellished. It's a whole resurrection account in 10 verses. Now read the Gospel of Peter. The Gospel of Peter, which is pseudepigraphal and Gnostic in form, has this incredible talking cross coming up behind Jesus. This is very short, unembellished, giving no explanation. Oh, by the way, if you believe in Jesus, then you go to heaven. None of that. You just hear the facts. This is what happened.
Let's say the resurrection is true. What happens to people who miss the cutoff point? You know, they were born just a couple thousand years too early, and
Yeah. Well, fortunately, Hebrews chapter 11 talks about a lot of those people who never heard about Jesus, who will be in heaven because they put their faith in God.
what about Australopithecus? What about
I don't know.
Afarensis? What, do they miss the cutoff point?
No. The good news is that God is all-knowing, God is just and compassionate, so God's going to judge all of us uniquely and fairly. Now listen to this resurrection account also in Luke. While they were still, this is the disciples, talking about this, which the women had reported that Jesus had risen, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. They didn't conclude, oh, welcome back from the dead, Jesus. No, they thought they were hallucinating, just like you said. They thought this was a ghost of some type of apparition. He said to them, why are you troubled, and why do doubts rise in your minds? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have. See, your question is very reasonable. It's exactly what the disciples questioned when they saw Jesus risen. Oh no, what was in our drink? Oh no, what's happening to us psychologically? And he deals with it and says, come on guys, give me something to eat and drink. Come on guys, grab hold of me and see. A spirit does not have flesh and bone the way you see I have. See, so your doubts, your questions are totally understandable, totally reasonable. It's exactly what the first century disciples struggled with. It makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, man. Good to meet you. Thanks so much.